This steak pasta is going to make you a dinner time hero. First up, you're gonna conquer a skill every home cook should have in the bag. Then I'll share my tried and true method for a perfectly smooth pasta sauce. And to make sure we keep that prep work to the absolute minimum, we're gonna use some powerhouse ingredients that are easy to work with, yet deliver the max amount of flavor. So the first thing you wanna do is get a big pot of water on the stovetop, bring it to a roaring boil. Don't forget to add the salt. Being able to cook a really good steak on the stovetop is an essential skill that every single home cook should be able to master. So I'm gonna show you how to do it. It's gonna be really easy. So you're just gonna grab a little wad of paper towels and you're just gonna start patting the excess moisture away from the steak. I'm using a ribeye. This is maybe just over a pound. When it comes to picking out your steak, what you really wanna pay attention to is just how thick it is. The thicker the steak, the longer it's gonna take to cook, and vice versa for a thinner steak. And now we're going to add a little bit of seasoning. In order to get that seasoning to stick, you're gonna have to bring in a little bit of oil. So I'm just gonna drizzle my steak here with about a tablespoon of oil on both sides and rub it all over. Now I'm gonna sprinkle with some kosher salt here, a little bit of pepper, flip it and season the other side as well. So that's 1.5 teaspoons of kosher salt and 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. That's all the seasoning you need for your steak. Now we're gonna get into the veggies. Some of these veggies are gonna go in at the beginning of the sauce, and then some of them are gonna go in at the end of the cooking process, but we're gonna go ahead and get them all out of the way now. So we're just cutting into 1 red onion, and we're just gonna give it a nice chunky dice. Whew, okay, that tore up my eyes a little bit. We're gonna move on to 2 cloves of garlic, and we're just gonna give these a rough chop. These 2 we're gonna use at the beginning of the sauce, and now our add-ins are going to be baby spinach and sun-dried tomatoes. So we'll start with the spinach, and we just wanna give it a rough chop. If you add your spinach in whole, it's going to end up choking out a few of your guests. So just give it a nice little run through with your knife. Now for the great big powerhouse of flavor, sun-dried tomatoes. Just laying 3 to 4 on my board at a time. And I'm just gonna give them a little julienne style cut here. This sauce for this steak pasta is so insanely dreamy. Part of what makes it so delicious is the freshly grated Gouda cheese. You can use regular Gouda or you can use a smoked Gouda. I'm gonna go with a smoked Gouda because it's just gonna add a little extra oomph to the dish overall. So I'm just cutting away the rind and then I'm going to grate it. 1.5 cup freshly grated smoked Gouda. My water has officially hit a roaring boil, so I'm gonna add a 1/2 pound of Farfalle noodles straight to the water. I'm gonna cook my pasta according to package directions. So now we're gonna start building some flavor. Every home cook should know how to pan-sear a steak. We're already halfway there. We patted it dry, removed the excess moisture, got it nice and oiled and seasoned. Now we gotta get some hot oil in this pan. About 2 tablespoons of avocado or canola oil going down. Now you've got your pan over medium-high heat, and once everything is really good and hot, you're gonna start searing that steak. So you're gonna take your steak, you're gonna lay it down, and we're gonna let this sear. We're not gonna touch it, we're not gonna jostle it, we're not gonna do anything to it for 5 solid minutes. I'm gonna go set my kitchen timer, and I'm not gonna touch my steak until the timer goes off. Now you're gonna flip it. You wanna make sure you got oil underneath it. And now you're gonna let this cook for another 5 minutes. Don't jostle, don't touch. Instant read thermometers are a cook's very best friend. It's reading right around 145, so it's safe to pull it because once this comes off of the cooking vessel, it's still gonna continue to cook a little bit, so you really wanna pull it about 5 degrees before you hit your ideal temperature. Juicy. Now what we're gonna do is continue cooking. We're gonna add in 1 red onion chopped. Give this a stir, and you wanna scrape up all those little brown bits from the bottom of the pan and make sure the onion gets really nice and coated in there. The onions have cooked down. It's been about 4 minutes, and now we're gonna go ahead and add in those 2 cloves of chopped garlic. Give this a stir and let it cook for about 1 minute more. So this is the base of the sauce, and what we're gonna do now is we're gonna add in 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour to thicken things up. Just sprinkle it right in. Give it a stir so that it's coating all of that onion and garlic. And I promised you the smoothest, creamiest sauce ever, so here's how you do it. I've got 2.5 cups of whole milk here, and instead of streaming and whisking, what we're gonna do is we're just gonna add in one big splash at a time, and then we're gonna stir after each addition. You can see it bubbles up and it thickens fast. So as soon as you see it start to thicken, we're just gonna pour in one more splash. When you've got about half of your liquid incorporated, then you can start drizzling all of it in, stirring as you go. And now we're gonna let this thicken a little bit. We're gonna let it come to a simmer, and then we're gonna reduce the heat to maintain that simmer and let it go for about 3 to 5 minutes. We're all done simmering and the sauce is the perfect consistency, and here's how you can tell. What you wanna do is give it a stir with a wooden spoon or a spatula, and it's gonna be a little hot, but what I like to do is take my finger, run it along the back side, and if that line stays separated, your sauce is ready to go. Now we're gonna add in about 1 teaspoon of kosher salt and a 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. Give it a stir. Gonna take that smoked Gouda cheese, which we should all be very excited about, and just sprinkle that right in. Just stir until it's nice and smooth and the cheese is entirely melted. Also gonna add in 10 of those julienned sun-dried tomatoes. Sprinkle in 2 cups of spinach. Let that wilt down a little bit. Now goes in the cooked pasta. And just give it a stir until everything is really good and coated in there. And then we can finish it with some red pepper flakes. Time to slice into the steak. But before you can cut into your steak, you really should find the direction of the grain. And as you can see, like this bend right here, this is the grain. We want to cut in the opposite direction of the grain. So I'm actually going to separate my steak, and I'm gonna cut against the grain this way. Oh, did you hear that crust? Let's give it a taste. It is so good. Like over the top savory, best steak pasta ever, hands down. If y'all are in the hunt for more restaurant quality dishes you can make in your very own kitchen, be sure to check out my restaurant takeout playlist next.